I was born in King City, California, May 30th, 1944.
I was born in Fresno, California, April 28th, 1944. My mother's name was Esther Agnes McClellan Reynolds, and my father's name was Ralph Hill Reynolds.
And when were their birthdays?
Their birthday was, my mother was born July 28th, 1909, and my dad's birthday was June 1st, 1913. My mother came from Iowa, and my dad came from California. My mother was born in Romeo, Colorado in 1909, and my dad was born in Fresno, California on June 1st, 1913.
Harold Hawley Sanders and Ruth Amelia Holland Sanders.
And how did they meet?
Good question. I don't think I know how exactly they met.
And do you know where they got married?
They may have gotten married in Santa Maria, but I'm not positive about that either. My dad worked for Van Gas, and I think he met my mother through Van Gas because my uncle Morrissey started Van Gas, and his wife, Evelyn, was my mother's sister. And so I think that may be how they met.
How long were they married for?
They were married for about 45 years, I believe.
They were married for, let me say, they were married in 1938, and my mother passed away in 1984, and then my dad passed away in 2004.
How did they pass?
My dad died at the age of 91, and he just died of old age, I guess you could say. And my mother died of renal failure at the age, or in 1984.
They had 3 daughters, including my older sister, Carol Sue, who was born in Paso Robles, and my younger sister, Donna Ruth, who was born in Santa Cruz.
Where did they get married?
That is a good question. I think I have their marriage certificate, and it may have been in Fresno, California.
And what, did they lived in Fresno the whole entire time that they were married?
No, I was born in Fresno, and my dad worked for the Pacific Telephone Company and had been transferred several different times with the company. He was in management, and he lived in Fresno, in Coalinga, in Bakersfield, and in San Francisco. I went to grammar school in Bakersfield at Longfellow Grammar School.
Did you guys travel around a lot as kids?
We did. We went on trips, family trips and things. We lived in Santa Cruz for quite a while, and our dad used to take us up to San Francisco to different events up there. And then when I was in like 5th grade, my dad got transferred and we moved up to Pocatello, Idaho, where I went to 6th and 7th grade. Then we moved back down to Fresno, California, where I finished junior high, high school, and college.
I had one living sibling, and her name was Judith Gale Reynolds, and she was born in 1940. She was one of twins. She had a twin sister by the name of Joyce, and Joyce died prematurely, and Judy was the only surviving sister. Then I had another sister before I was born in 1942 by the name of Sandra, and she was hydrocephalic, and in those days, back in 1942, 1943, they did not have the medical technology that they have today, and she passed away before I was born. And then in 1944, I was born, April 28th.
And how did Judy pass?
Judy passed away in the hospital from alcoholism. She had an addiction and was unable to control it, and passed away in 1984. She has two children. She had Diana Camrar, who passed away in 1993. And my sister has another daughter by the name of Brenda, and she is presently living in San Jose, California.
I don't think I had any big plans when I was really little, not until I was in high school and I had my testing done to see my aptitude testing, and then I scored high in mechanical, and one of the counselors suggested that I go into nursing, and so that is what I did.
And what did your mom do?
My mother was a registered nurse, and she graduated from Burnett Sanitarium in Kingsburg, California, somewhere around 1939, 1940.
How long was she a nurse for?
She worked on and off during the period of my childhood and when I was growing up until I started college. And she worked at the hospital as well as she had private duty work as well.
What did you have any hobbies or anything that you did as a kid? Did you play any instruments?
Started out with the flutophone when I was in probably elementary school, and then went on to play clarinet in junior high and high school, and even a little bit in college, and enjoyed it a lot. Got to go marching with the band, and we got to go down to LA and be in some parades, and to San Francisco. So it was fun.
My grandfather's name was Robert Warren Reynolds, and he was married to Daisel Ione Hill. Grandpa Reynolds, or my dad, Ralph Hill Reynolds, was raised by his father's two sisters. In my dad's infancy, Daisel and Robert divorced, and they then remarried. And my grandmother, Daisel, married a man by the name of James Alfred Nelson. And they lived in San Francisco in the Mission District. And he was a successful businessman who owned a glass and glazing company by the name of Progress Glass Company. His shop was on Folsom Avenue in the Mission District in San Francisco. My grandfather's side, he remarried and moved to Southern California. He married a wonderful lady by the name of Genevieve, and he was a very successful businessman as well. He owned a cabinet making shop that made cabinets for both residential and commercial companies. And the name of his company was Spencer and Reynolds. And it was in existence from the 1930s until 2000. And it is no longer in existence, as well as the Progress Glass Company is no longer in existence.
My first real job, I think, was working at a medical center where I did filing, basically filing, medical filing.
My granddad was a wonderful man, became a Christian Scientist religion, and they did not believe in having medical care taking care of them by an MD, but more or less from an individual from the church. And my granddad died in Fresno, California, and he became diabetic, and he had a heart attack, and they were unable to revive him. And since he was Christian Scientist, they did not call in a doctor to try to revive him, and as a consequence, that did not go very well with my dad. And for a while then, my dad was divorced from that side of the family for a period of time, and then they then came back together again. My granddad, on my dad's side, came from Garnett, Kansas, and Janet's father came from Garnett, Kansas as well, just as a complete coincidence, although they did not know each other.
What was your first car?
My dad bought me a 1951 Chevy. It was black, and I called it the Black Bomb.
When I was growing up, I had a very stable life with my sister. My dad was always there for me, and so was my mother. They were very, very good parents. My dad set very fine example for me, gave me ideas on how to lead my life, and my mother did that as well, and I'm very fortunate.
Well, in high school, I had a good friend, Noelle Villalon, and I had another good friend, Judy Seamus. I'm afraid I lost contact with both of them after high school. I haven't been able to run them down even at our class reunions. I've tried to find them and reconnect with them, and I haven't been able to run them down. My
first job actually was as a bag boy at the Green Frog grocery store while I was in high school.
What was your first car?
My first car was a 1950 Chevrolet that was all customized and fixed up pretty nice. It was red, had red and white tuck and roll, and I drove it when I was in a junior in high school and a senior in high school.
And what high school did you go to?
I went to Bakersfield High School, and I graduated in 1962.
Dad worked at the library at Fresno City College, and I was going to school there and taking classes, and I used to go into the library to study. and I saw him in there. And although I don't think we really ever talked to each other, but a friend of mine and myself went out after a football game and went to a bar/dance place and to listen to a band. He happened to be there and he asked me to dance, and we started our relationship then.
2 years of junior college at Fresno City College and got my AA degree. After I graduated, I then went into the Navy, U.S. Navy, and served aboard the USS Oriskany, CVA 34, which was an aircraft carrier out in the South China Seas during the Vietnam crisis. I was a legal yeoman, and I worked in the legal office when I was aboard ship. And in 1964, I was released from active duty and went back to Fresno and went a half a year to Fresno State College, met my wife, and we both had plans on what we wanted to do for an occupation. And so instead of getting married right away, we decided to go ahead and have a long distance romance where I moved to San Francisco and went to the Academy of Stenographic Arts, which was a court reporting school. And Janet went ahead and continued her education at Fresno City College and got her nursing degree. And after we got our degrees and our state licenses on August 2nd, 1969, we got married.
And how long did you guys date for?
About 3 years, because he was going to school in San Francisco and I was finishing nursing school in Fresno. And after he finished school and after I finished school, then we got married.
And what did your mom do?
My mom was a housemaker and really never worked outside the home. She was a wonderful person.
Yeah.
She could have very easily been a nurse. She was a very caring, loving person. My mom contracted colon cancer and passed away at the age of 62.
And
my mom and dad were divorced at that time. My mom left my dad after they'd been married for many, many years.
Why did they split?
I really can't tell you exactly, except my mom kind of thought she found someone else that she really liked, and that never even worked out. But I think she thought that maybe something would come of another person that she had found that she thought she was in love with.
And what did Grandpa go off to do?
Grandpa remarried, and actually he remarried twice. He married a lady by the name of Mary Lou, but that marriage, who lived in Fresno, and they were only married for a couple of years, and that did not work out. And then Grandpa remarried a second time and married a lady by the name of Vivian. And they were married for, maybe 20 years or so before my dad passed away.
How did he pass away?
He was like 89, I believe, and just I think he had some congestive heart failure.
So what made you go into the Navy to begin with?
That was at the behest of my father, and that's why I kind of broke down a little bit here, because I owe an awful lot to him. It was during the period of time of the Vietnam crisis, and the draft was in place at that time after you got out of high school or while you were in college. And between my junior and senior year in high school, my dad recommended that perhaps I join the U.S. Naval Reserves. And they had a contract where you had 3 years of active reserve, which meant that you were still at home and on weekends and on one day a week, you would go to the naval facility in the area where you lived, and you would be given lessons on what to do while you're in the service. And so when I finished junior college, my 3 years of active reserve was up, and I had to go in to the Navy active duty. And so that's the reason that I had broken service in school, where I had gone 2 years to college and then had 2 years of active duty Navy service. I was in for a total of 7 years. It was 3 years active reserve, 2 years active duty, and 1 year of inactive reserve.
My older sister, Carol Sue, lives in Reno. She has 4 children. She was married to a man by the name of Bob. They were married for 64 years, I believe, before Bob passed away. She now lives with her son and daughter-in-law. And my younger sister, Donna, lives in Modesto, California. She has 1 son, Josh, and she's married to a man by the name of Frank. Their last name is Nicholas. My older sister has 4 children, and she has 3 boys and 1 daughter.
And what made you decide to do court reporting?
Again, that was at the recommendation and behest of my dad. When we lived in San Francisco, and my dad had been transferred up there, we rented our house that we lived in Bakersfield, and it just so happened to be a court reporter that lived in the house. And so my dad had contact with this gentleman who was a court reporter, and he saw that it looked like it was a very good profession to get into, and so he relayed that to me when I was like in my junior year of high school. And so I started taking courses along those lines so that I was going to go ahead and in my profession become a court reporter.
And how long was school for court reporting?
My court reporting school was, I had 1 year of court reporting studies at Fresno Junior College from 1963 to 1964. And then I did some court reporting as well when I was aboard the USS Oriskany. And then when I got out of the service, I went to Fresno State for a semester that had nothing to do with court reporting, and that's when I met Janet. And then I decided at that time that I better go to a court reporting school that taught exclusively court reporting, and that was up in San Francisco. And I was going to school there for 2.5 years before I got my certificate and got my degree and got my license.
I am pretty much have always liked all food, and I'm not a fussy eater, and I never have been. I'm afraid I like sweets too much, and I still eat sweets too much. But as far as a favorite food, when I was growing up, my mom was a very good cook, and she used to make a lot of different good meals. They were all good meals, and she also was very good at baking and making pies, and so I ate all of it.
My best friends growing up were Bruce Stiefel, that was in high school. In junior high school, I had a friend who was in our wedding and was an usher by the name of John Lindberg. And Bruce, who I just made mention, was our best man. And then I had my brother-in-law, who was Alan J. Kamrar, who was an usher. And that's basically all I can remember.
I became a registered nurse, and I worked in orthopedics for 21.5 years, which I absolutely loved. I worked for a doctor by the name of Dr. O'Neill, E. Byron O'Neill, and he was a very brilliant doctor and a very good teacher, and taught me many things about orthopedics, and it was a wonderful career that I had. I really missed it when I quit working for several years. I missed it. I missed the people that I worked with, but mainly the patients.
Went out in the field of court reporting. We were in Bakersfield. Janet and I had gotten married, and I applied for a job in a deposition firm in Bakersfield, and was accepted, and was an employee there for 2 years. And after the 2 years, I then became a partner for the firm, which was called Stoner, Schlinker and Reynolds. And I was a partner there for 3 years when a position opened up in the courthouse. And I then went ahead and relinquished my partnership in the deposition firm and went to work in Kern County Municipal Court. I was an employee there for 27 years.
Yes, I was married before Dad for a very short time to a guy by the name of Robert Stafford. And we had one son together, Michael. And after Jim and I got married, he adopted Mike so that he has the same last name as the rest of the family. I have one son that went back to college at the age of 40 and got a degree in IT, and he works for the state of Washington, and he does IT work up there with computers. And then our oldest son, Michael, who lives in Chehalis, Washington, is an ultrasonographer, as is his wife, and he works in the hospital and she works in a doctor's office.
After retirement, and I retired at the age of 55, again at the behest of my dad, saying that he had retired at age 60 and that he really enjoyed his retirement. And so I had planned and saved to a point where I was able to retire at age 55. And after I retired, I then became involved in physical fitness and started to become a long distance runner. And while I was doing long distance running, I came across friends who were also long distance runners, but as well as triathletes. And I was trying to improve my running ability, and I found out that cross training with biking, swimming, and running would help out. And so I became seriously involved in triathlons. We had a core group in Bakersfield that we would meet almost every day and either run, swim, or bike. And I did that for 15 years. I did several triathlons, and ones of note would be the world's toughest triathlon, which was in Lake Tahoe. I did the Escape from Alcatraz, which was in San Francisco, and then I did the Canadian Ironman as well. And then there were other triathlons as well that weren't quite as noted as those three in different areas of California and outside.
We built a house in Bakersfield and lived there for 28 years, I believe. And then when we were getting close to retirement, we bought a house in Tehachapi, and we moved up to Tehachapi, and we lived in Tehachapi for 10 years, which we enjoyed a lot. And then we decided to leave California since all of our boys had grown up and left, and our parents had passed, and so we moved to Colorado Springs, which we have not regretted for a minute. We love it here.
Yeah.
Our biggest hobby, well, we have been into exercise for many, many years. We started at Colorado, Bakersfield College in their Shape Up program. And about the age of 35, we started exercising, getting into exercise and doing some running and some exercising, and Jim really got into it and started doing triathlons. But I did more walking, hiking, biking, and that type of thing. But we have done a lot of bike rides, a lot of long bike rides. But we've also climbed Half Dome, and I did the 3-day hike into Machu Picchu, which is a very, very difficult hike. And but now that we live here in Colorado Springs, we have gotten into a game called pickleball. And we've been playing that for like the last 6 or 7 years, and have met a lot of nice people and gotten a lot of good exercise and had a lot of fun.
Janet became involved as well in cycling, and we did a lot of what they call centuries, which were 100-mile rides in a day, and we became very active in that particular field. And then there was one particular organized bike ride that was a 200-mile bike ride done in one day, which I did. The first time I attempted it, there was a crash in which I was involved and had to go to the hospital with a dislocated fingers. And then the next year I went ahead and joined in on the 200-mile bike ride, and was able to complete it in, I believe, about 14 hours.
Probably becoming a registered nurse. That was a big accomplishment for me, but I'm proud of my boys.
How did you get into, like, you have always had like some sort of a classic car, like the Roadster?
When I was living in Bakersfield, and my good friend Bruce, he was into street rods, and it was rather shortly after Janet and I got married, I got involved as well, and my first street rod was a 1929 Model A Roadster, which I bought down in Los Angeles at Knott's Berry Farm.
Yes, I have 2 biological grandchildren, Connor and Sean, who are growing up way too fast, and Connor just graduated from high school, and Sean is going to be a junior this next year, and they're great kids and have a great father. I graduated from Bullard High School in Fresno and Fresno City College in Fresno. And when I graduated from Fresno City College, I had an AA degree in my RN after I took my 8-hour state board. Well, I've had a wonderful life. I feel like we've gotten to do and see a lot of things. Dad and I, since we retired, we've gotten to go on a lot of nice trips. We've gone over to Europe and New Zealand and China and Peru, and we are very fortunate that we've been able to do the things that we've been able to do and enjoy our life.